The Almighty Dragon General.
Chapter 4. After leaving the Callahan's villa, Thea was crying. "Jamie, I'm so sorry. I don't even have any control over my marriage." James took her hand. "It's okay. Grandfather has made the statement. If I manage to get an order from Celestial Group, he'll have no choice but to acknowledge us as husband and wife. It's Celestial Group we're talking about." Thea was worried. Born and bred in Kensington, she knew all there was to Celestial Group. Celestial Group was an international company, having broken into the Kensington market just recently. The Great Four basically monopolized Celestial Group's orders. James only smiled. "We'll never know if we don't try." Thea thought of something suddenly, saying, "Oh yeah, I remember now. An old classmate of mine is working at Celestial Group. In fact, she's the head of a department there. Let me get in touch with her. She might be able to connect us with the higher management." "Okay." Holding hands, the both of them walked home to Thea's. Thea's house and the Callahan's villa were located in the same residential area. Where the headquarters of the Callahans was the villa, Thea's place was in a high-rise building. The two of them took a leisurely stroll back. Gladys had arrived ahead of them, and she refused to let James into the house. James shrugged. There was nothing he could do. "I'll go home then, Thea." Thea knew she had no choice either, so she nodded. The priority now was to secure the orders from Celestial. That way, the Callahans would have no choice but to accept James as part of the family. After settling down at home, she got in touch with her classmate whom she had not spoken to for many years. On the other hand, James returned to the House of Royals, situated in an area where the most luxurious villas of Kensington were. He sat down on the couch and lit a cigarette. Taking out his phone, he dialed a number. "Bring me the chairman of Celestial Group." He hardly wanted to press his privilege as the Dragon General, but it could not be helped if he wanted the deal with Celestial. Soon, a middle-aged man about 50 years of age arrived at the house. Wearing a suit, he was heavy-set and starting to go bald. General." As soon as the man entered the House of Royals, he fell to his knees. In Kensington, he was in charge of Celestial Group. Hailing from the capital, his name was Alex Yates. Before arriving, Alex had taken the time to find out with whom he would be meeting. He was kneeling in front of the legendary Dragon General of the Southern Plains. He showed no mercy on and off the battlefield, and his enemies cowered in fear when they heard about the Black Dragon. The Dragon General was no ordinary man. He was more than important, and therefore commanded the highest level of respect. Still kneeling on the ground, Alex felt a trickle of perspiration slide down his spine. "Alex Yates?" James put down the stack of documents he was holding in his hand. Looking at the middle-aged man kneeling on the ground, he waved a hand and said mildly, "Why don't you stand up?" "Yes, sir." Alex stood. He was sweating profusely, but he made no move to wipe his sweat away. Shaking in fear, he wondered if he had somehow offended this modern-day Ares. Why was he summoned? "Tomorrow, my wife Thea Callahan will be visiting Celestial Group, asking for a deal of $30 million. You're to handle it personally. Don't mess it up." Alex sighed in relief and broke into a smile. "Of course, General. Even if it's a deal of $300 million, it would be yours if you say the word. Remember, my wife's name is Thea. Thea Callahan." "Yes, sir." "That's all. You may leave now." "Yes, sir." Alex felt like he had been granted amnesty and left at top speed, still soaked in sweat. As part of the Yates family from the capital, he helmed Celestial Group in Kensington. Even the Great Four had to be careful lest they provoke him, but his role was reversed when meeting James. After Alex left, James rose from the couch and muttered to himself, "I've been back for more than 10 days, but I have not paid my respects yet." He walked out of the house, planning to take a taxi to the ruins of the Caden house in the suburbs. However, there was a multi-purpose vehicle without a license plate waiting outside. A dark-skinned man in a black tank stood by the car. James walked up and cut Henry a glare. "Didn't I tell you to take the men and return to the border?" "General, all the other men have returned to the Southern Plains. It's just me now. Won't you let me stay?" "Call me James. The General is no more in Kensington." "You got it. Take me to the Caden cemetery." "Well, get in the car then, James." Soon, James was at the spot where the Caden's villa once stood. The villa had been burned to ashes, now replaced by graves. Cansington's first family was now worm food, their home in ruins. The sky was dark. Gray clouds gathered overhead. Pitter-patter. The heavens opened and unleashed a torrent of rain. At the cemetery, a young man stood there in a brown coat. Behind him was another man, holding an umbrella over him. Thud. James fell to his knees. 10 years ago, the Cadens were the first family of Cansington. He was only 18 years old then. The same year, his father married another woman. His stepmother was Rowena Xavier of the Great Four, belonging to one of the most prestigious families in Cansington. Rowena had a plan all along. She slipped into James' grandfather's bed, accusing him of drugging her. His grandfather's reputation was left in tatters, and the Cadens were reduced to a joke. That very same year, Rowena lodged a report against his father, accusing him of corruption and bribery. His father was so angry that it triggered a heart attack. Not only did Rowena not save him, but she pushed him off the 3rd floor. She told everyone else that his father Nicholas committed suicide because he felt guilty. After the death of his father, the Xaviers, who led the Great Four, converged at the Cadens and killed his grandfather. They held the entire Caden family hostage, forcing them to hand over their family treasure, a painting named Moonlit Flowers on Cliffside's Edge. After they obtained it, the Great Four burned the house down with the Cadens still within and divided the Cadens' assets. Dad, you're a sinner. You're the reason the Cadens are gone. You should have never married Rowena Xavier. You should have never brought that vicious woman home. James knelt in front of the grave, crying his heart out. It was a myth that men did not shed tears. It just took a certain amount of pain. He hated his father. His father fell in love with the wrong woman, resulting in the demise of the Cadens. He hated Rowena Xavier. He hated the Great Four even more. The Xaviers, Frasers, Zimmermans, and Wilsons murdered the Cadens. Grandfather, I will not let you die in vain. I swear I'll avenge your death. The Great Four will not live in peace. I'll bring you the heads of the Great Four as proof. My condolences, General. Henry was still standing behind James, holding the umbrella. Henry had never seen James so distraught before. In fact, he did not think that the almighty Black Dragon even had an emotional side. He had shown no hint of fear against enemy armies, but in front of the graves, James was a puddle of tears. General, Megatron Group, belonging to the Xaviers, will be having a celebratory banquet tonight. Megatron and Celestial have signed a permanent agreement. From now on, Megatron will have early access to Celestial's orders before letting the other groups and companies choose. The head of the Xaviers is also turning 80 today. It's a double celebration. Megatron. James clenched his fists. Megatron was the Caden's family business. Now, it had fallen into the Xaviers' hands. He stood up slowly, a murderous glint in his eye. Get me a coffin. We're going to the banquet. It's time to collect a debt.